talk a little bit about the business of money in your spiritual environment, and a little bit about where your head is in the game. So I want to start here because I want to talk about your finances as a transformational process. And I want to invite you as leaders in your community to understand that there are many transformational processes that we engage in as spiritual leaders. And those transformational processes are often things that we think normally about. It's transformational to bring people into a Sunday lesson. We do some transformational work with our workshops, with our special classes, with our guest speakers. It's even easy to think about our music as a transformational experience. But what we don't often think of as transformational is the way we work through the finances of our spiritual community. And we don't think about that at home either. We don't think about finances as how we move the substance of the holy, how we actually call in what we need, designate it well, and move it out, that we are essentially given the gift of source energy with which to guide our community. And that source energy moves through everyone in our community in one way or another, even people who are struggling because they feel themselves in lack. Those people are in a spiritual lesson, aren't they? They're taking a spiritual class that allows them to consider how they move from lack to prosperity. So those of us that are in prosperity are learning how we use the prosperity that's given to us and how we designate what is most important in our lives, what we have been invited to support. So what happens with church finance is that most of the time we think about it as this thing we have to do to keep the doors open. We have to figure out how we have enough money to keep everybody there. And we miss the fact that our spiritual process is as important a spiritual lesson, a spiritual experience as anything else that we do. So today I'm going to invite you into that consciousness, to think differently about the money issues in your community, to begin to run them through the same filter that you would run all of your other activities through. Is this good for our community? Are we guiding our community? What are we trying to teach our community? This is an opportunity presented to us to teach something and live a certain way that changes everyone's life experience. So it's really critically important that we recognize this as a spiritual act, a spiritual process, because it's so incredibly important to the people we serve. How we teach this, how we move around our money as church leaders, helps them to understand how they can move around their money as people in life, in their families, in their workplaces, in the world. Where will they designate what is important to them? What resources are being given to them? Where is grace available to them? All of that. What is prosperity really? And this was really important foundationally to unity. Charles Fillmore said, deny that lack has any place or reality in your thought or your affairs, and affirm plenty as the only appearance. Praise what you have, be it ever so little, and insist that it is constantly growing larger. That's an interesting comment, and one that I want you to give some thought to. I want you to just consider it, because one of the things that we have to be careful of is, do you guys remember when the movie The Secret came out years ago? Do you remember that movie? This was a movie that was a metaphysically oriented movie, one of those ones that has lots of different teachers, and there were some good lessons in it, but it left you in a place that sounded like, if I just say $20,000 will appear in my mailbox in the next 30 days, I should be able to manifest $20,000 in my mailbox, and I shouldn't have to do anything to make that happen. It should just happen. And the point of that is to recognize that one of the things that we know in unity is that it's more than just making it happen. It's more than just thinking. It's living into a concept. It's really living from this place that says, we understand source to be all providing, which means we have what we need for this moment. We have what we need, and what we need will come to us. Some of you have just joined the class. I want to just take a minute and welcome you and thank you for being here. Our subject today is budgeting, which doesn't sound very exciting, but I promise you it's going to be a fun class. And I invite you, if you would, please, to close your mic until we get to the question and answer part, just so that we don't have background noise. We're starting out talking about this Charles Fillmore quote, and I'm going to read it again for those couple people who just joined. Deny that lack has any place or reality in your thought or your affairs, and affirm plenty as the only appearance. Praise what you have, be it ever so little, and insist that it is constantly growing larger. So as we begin to think about our spiritual community, I want you to just ask yourselves, how often do you deny that lack is part of your experience? How often do you actually in your head say, this has no power over me? This financial situation has no power over me. I am in the process of bringing abundance, holding abundance for my community. We are abundant in many ways. This denying lack is a really important consideration in the conversation that you have with your community. Because if your conversation with your community is seated in lack, your community will follow you. You are the church leaders. Your community will follow you into that form of thinking. So when I took on my last Unity church, the church was in lack. The mentality had been lack for 10 years. The community, the building had been allowed to come apart. Things were not repaired because there wasn't enough money. There was a big sign in the lobby with a thermostat on it that said, we only have this much money and here's where we have to get to. And every Sunday there was a financial report given as part of the process that spoke about what we didn't have and what we needed to get to. So getting that community to think of itself as abundant took the whole first year I was there. Because the abundance the community had was 110 people in the seats every weekend, a beautiful building up on the hill looking at Pikes Peak. We could not have had a better view. A history that at that point was a decade away from 100 years. So there's so many people who had been there for 10, 15, 20 years who were really committed to the community and just needed to think differently. When I left the community 11 years later, the community owned its own building, had $127,000 in the bank, and was financially very stable and healthy. That happened because I worked with them on the way they were thinking about and living into abundance. And I say this to you because right now we're all fighting it in the world, aren't we? The economic picture is challenging. Everything seems more expensive. The conversation people are surrounded with is there isn't enough. Are you as a church delivering a message that there is? Are you helping people to understand source energy is source energy? It's something for you to consider, not something for you to beat up on yourself about, but something for you to give consideration to, because the spiritual journey of your church is a spiritual teaching in progress. This work that you do is the spiritual work of your community. And this is a very big, important piece of spiritual work right now in the world that we live in. And it's needed. And if we want to look into thinking differently from the world, I want to offer you the scripture. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by renewing your mind. Do not conform to the pattern of the world. Do not fall into the conversation about economic difficulty, because I promise you, the people in your community have money in their pocket. And the money in their pocket is there because they think they need it for something. And they do. There are things that they need. They need to learn to discern what they need. And whether they recognize it or not, they are showing up on Sunday morning because they need you. Because they need what you offer. They need what you do. What you offer them changes their world experience. So helping people to understand the value of their Sunday experience and their week-long experience as members of your community is so much more important than having them understand the money you need. Once they understand how much they need what you are giving, what you provide them with, they will naturally want to support it. But our conversation often in churches is not around how much good we're doing. It's about what we need to keep doing it. So I want you to think about the good that you do in the world and how you communicate that. Who are the nonprofits that you help? How do you help your community? Do you have a benevolence fund in your community to help people who have a need? Are you able to do that? Do you do it regularly? What happens for your people? Do you bring in guest speakers? Do you have consistent growth? Do you have people in your community who talk about why they keep coming back? What needs to shift for your community to feel like an abundant community is not about the amount of dollars in your bank account. It's about the abundant understanding of the gifts that unity is bringing into the world. And when you're in conversation about growing financially and that becomes secondary, it works so much better. When you are in the world being a voice of gratitude, do you really understand the gifts that are in your life every day? You are not conforming to the pattern of the world that says, oh my gosh, there's such economic crisis, everyone's hurting. Now, I want to caveat this statement a little bit, because we have to be careful not to just spiritually bypass what's going on for people. There are people who sit in our chairs on Sunday morning who do not have the money to know whether or not they can pay their rent, pay their car payment, put food in the refrigerator. There are real issues in our community, and it is important for us to make space in our community for people who are struggling to, one, get some help from us if we can find a way to help them, two, if nothing else, get referrals from us to places that can help them, and to be aware that they have something to contribute. So one of the ways that you can do that is always to add to your statements when you are in the process of talking about financial abundance and the financial health of your community, to always add something like, we really understand that everyone here has something to communicate. You may be a person living on a very tight fixed schedule, fixed income. And we know that on your fixed income, you may be just barely getting everything done that you want to get done. But you are some of the most fruitful people we have to pray for this community. And we want to invite you into the prayer and affirmation of this community's well-being and abundance, its health on all levels. So now you have opened the door for everyone to communicate, to contribute somehow, right? Really important, because that prayer really matters. That statement of gratitude really shifts energy for us. So how we think as leaders and recognize abundance in our community really matters, and where our focus is. When Fillmore says, praise what you have, it's because when we praise what we have, we bring more of it. And instead, we often spend our time talking about what we don't have. So I say this to you because this is some of the most important spiritual learning that you have as church leaders. How you think about the abundance of your community, the prosperity of your community, and the well-being of your community will lead everyone else. Is your church a community of empowered creators? This is a powerful question for you to ask yourself. Is your church a community of empowered creators? Do you believe that you can create what you want to create in your church environment? You're a community of several people, whether you are 25 people, 150 people, or 400 people. You are a community of people bringing your energy together to do something, bringing your energy together regularly. How many places in the world do we actually have that? Very few. There are very few places in our world where people are brought together to co-create the world that we want to see. Are we having those conversations with the people that are showing up on Sunday? Are we speaking to them as creative collaborators? Or are we speaking of them only as people we serve? Are we making them an audience? Because an audience, they pay a little bit for their ticket to get in the door. Maybe they put $5 in the basket every week because they're an audience. Their investment is show up. And your job is download. We're not looking in our financial process. We are not looking to create an audience. We're looking to create spiritual, creative collaborators who are envisioning what this community is doing and can do, who are grateful for what the community has and what it's becoming, and who actually feel like their showing up makes a difference. Some ministers are really good at this. Some ministers are really good at saying this community that gathers today is very unique to today. If any one of us was gone, the energy of this community would be different. But who we are today is the direct result of everyone who has come here today in unison, co-creating this moment. So if I say to the people who have shown up that they are co-creating this moment, they are no longer an audience, are they? They are co-creating this moment by their willingness to join in whatever the music is, to sing from a different place in their heart, to hear the words that are being spoken in a different way, to pray together, to meditate together. They are truly co-creating the moment. When we're in conversation that allows them to feel themselves as co-creators, it's much easier to talk to them about co-creating the community financially. That you are co-creating financially by what you give, how often you give, and what you designate your funds for. Through all of those financial decisions, we are growing spiritually as a community, and we are growing in our ability to do something more in the world, which is a different conversation, isn't it? Because it's empowering them financially to co-create financially. So these words are really important. And when I ask you, is your church a community of empowered creators? I ask you to ask yourself as well. When you think about the finances of your community, do you think of yourself as an empowered co-creator, or do you think of yourself as the problem solver who has to fix what there isn't? Because it makes a huge difference in the energy that you're bringing into your community. If you yourself are in a place of lack, of fear, you're missing that this is a tremendous opportunity for spiritual growth and expansion. And it starts to be able to have this conversation. You yourself have to be able to start by saying, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I going to eat today? Is there a roof over my head? Do I have clean clothes to wear? Do I have enough clean water? Yes. Are my needs really met? I mean, it seems like such a simple question. It's the thing we take for granted. If we were anywhere else on the planet, so many other places cannot answer that. Yes, 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 yes. Sorry, I have to walk 5 miles to drag water and it's not necessarily clean, right? Sorry, I'm wearing the same clothes I've worn for the last week because I only have 3 or 4 things I can wear. I don't have the opportunity to clean them. Maybe once a month I get to the river and I wash my clothes. I have a roof over my head. It's a pretty decent roof unless it's raining. Or I don't have a roof over my head at all. I'm sleeping on a park bench. Ask your community, how safe are you today? When you arrived here today, did you have clean clothing, food, whether you chose to eat breakfast or not, clean water to drink, the ability to bathe? Are your primary needs for life met? You are abundant. In the world we share, we live with so much abundance in our country, and we have a way of feeling like if we can't pay for this or we can't pay for that, it's scary. So I ask you to make yourself safe enough in your interior conversation to allow your community to feel how safe you really are. Because your building is it's not your church. We all learned that in COVID. The building is not your church. It's where people gather, and it's a great asset. But your church is comprised of people, co-creators, collaborators on your spiritual and your financial adventure. Allowing love to flow through us as us transforms not only our lives, but the lives of others. So what do you think money really is? What if money is nothing more than love flowing through us, as us, empowering us, transforming us, and transforming others? How would it be if you thought about the money of the church as love flowing from one hand to the next? It comes to you as church leaders. You redesignate it out into the world. It goes out to people whose lives are made better because they received it. That's really all we're doing, is moving love from one place to the next. And by our means, we make other people's lives better. People have jobs, children get backpacks, things change, right? Because we paid a bill, somebody else got paid, things get done. When our community gives to the church, and they give to the community, they are giving from love. Or they're giving from obligation. And this is an important thing for you to look at. Is your community in conversation about moving love? Or is your community operating in fear or in obligation? I have to do this because my church will die if I don't. I have to give this money because we don't really have enough. If I don't give, nobody else will. I have to give because we have so many freeloaders. I mean, really, the conversation can get really dark. What is the conversation you're having with them? Do you thank them for the love that they pass on? Do you speak to them about the many people in the world that benefit? We don't understand, and our society definitely does not understand how much church economics is important in a community, how many vendors we support, how we do the good work that we do in communities. We pass love along. And again, as the leaders, it falls to you to think this way, to recognize that, and to guide people in the spiritual experience of healthy finance. It's so much more than just the budget. It's so much more than that. sometimes when we can't figure out what the answer is, we have a tendency to gather all the voices we can gather and get everybody's opinion in one place. And I simply want to empower you to sit in a moment of silence before you gather everybody else's opinion, to ask other people before they come together, to take time for the power of silence. Because answers come to us for big problems in moments of silence, so much more often than they come in moments of frantic conversation. So in your toolbox for how you guide people, remember that the power of silence is foundational to unity. Bring people together, and before you start a conversation, invite them into a few moments of silence. Invite them the week before you have an important conversation to sit still for 30 minutes and simply open themselves to any good ideas that might drop in. Because it happens. The answers come differently. Embrace silence and stillness to cultivate inner peace and hear the whispers of the indwelling God. Because that's how it comes. And you are leaders because you know that. Rediscover the transformative potential of quieting the mind and soul. This is such an important piece of our financial health. In the stillness, we begin with gratitude. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm grateful for this time and all the gifts that come to me. I hold myself open to receive. And then just stillness. As leaders, this can be scary. There are moments that it feels scary, that you're making big decisions. Bringing yourself to peace and stillness and safety makes a big difference in how you make decisions going forward in the financial benefit, to the financial benefit. Unless you do the spiritual work, no amount of budgeting or financial planning can assure your financial success. It's when you do the spiritual work that the rest begins to fall into place. This is what we forget. We are gathered around the intention of spiritual growth and empowerment. That's who we are and what we do. We provide a place for people to grow spiritually. It's 100% of what we do, every aspect. And if we forget that, you can budget all day long and never experience the abundance that is already existing around you because you've forgotten why you came there. You've forgotten why you're there. If it seems like I'm saying the same thing to you over and over again, it's because I am. I'm saying to you that your financial journey is a spiritual aspect of what you do. And it's one of, as leaders, this financial journey is really big and right on in the front of your radar, isn't it? Those of you that are board members or leaders, you all hold fiduciary responsibility. It's a massive, massive, important task. So who do you think is learning the most spiritually from your financial situation? You. You have stepped into this willingly because you are invited into the spiritual growth that is potentially there for you if you choose to see it as that. Community is a space to experience transformative love. Money is just love made manifest. That's all it is. It's what we give our time to. That money is love made manifest. The money is in your pocket. You simply have to take it out. It's in their pocket. They simply have to take it out and put the love into motion. And you have to be very specific with your community about what your needs are. Very, very specific. We need X number of dollars to do this thing. That love exists in this community. I can't wait to see where it comes from. I'm so excited knowing that we're co-creating this and that it will come through the love and generosity of this community. If you want to change the way your people give, start referring to them as the generous community you already know they can be. I'm grateful for the generosity of this community, for the generous spirit of this community. I'm grateful for the generous spirit that gave us volunteers to cover the administrative office when the administrator was on vacation. I'm grateful for the generous spirit of the people on my fellowship team who are back, even as we speak, creating for us right now. I'm grateful for the generous spirit of the people who serve on our board. I am grateful for the generous spirit of the people who stood as ushers today. I am grateful for the generous spirit of those of you who are sitting here in these seats, bringing forth an energy that is healing in the world. We are a community of generous spirited people. As people come to hear it and know it and feel it, they become it. So these words make a difference. The words that we choose make a difference. And so often when we're in financial difficulty, the words that we use are words like, we can only give you what you're willing to pay for. No, we're just going to have to cut some things back. We understand it's tough out there, but it's tough for the church too. And if you're not engaged with us financially, if you're a member, you have a responsibility. We've all said these things. That it happens for all of us when we get in fear. So if those words ring true for you and anything like that has fallen out of your mouth, I'm not saying it to make you feel bad about saying it. I'm saying it to give you an option to speak differently and co-create what you want, which is a generous, caring community, moving the abundance of spirit in the world in a way that allows you to achieve your great mission. And when you really understand that's what you're doing, things change. Money is not the minister's job, it's the board's job. How about this? Money is not the board's job, it's the minister's job. Whose job is money? Really? You don't have to answer that out loud, but know what the answer is in your head. What do you think? Because ministers will say, my job is to teach, and my job is to offer pastoral counseling, and it's the community's job to figure out the money thing. The board has fiduciary responsibility, and the board will say, if we don't have a good minister, people don't show up to give. If the minister doesn't give a good message on Sunday morning, if they don't feel the usefulness of what the minister does, no amount of work from the board is going to make a difference. The reality is the financial well-being of your community is a work of your entire community. It is a work of everyone who's sitting in the seat, because the community belongs to the people sitting in the seat. Right? But we like to fashion it after family. We like to go, mom and dad will take care of everything so we can be the children here. Mom or dad, the board, mom or dad, the minister, and we just get to be the children and show up. That's not the case. We are on this financial journey as a community, and we are working together and co-collaborating and teaching. What are you teaching them about that?